Welcome to the Church of St. Ignatius Loyola. I apologize for the delay, but it is what it is. At least you got to hear Zoe and Sophia play a little bit longer, right? So we are so very happy to have you here with us this evening. As Catholics, we often sit at Mass listening to the priests and the lectors as they proclaim the Word of God. Sometimes we listen more attentively than others. Sometimes our mind wanders. That's just human nature. And when it wanders, we gaze at the beautiful statues and mosaics, images of God and the saints. To me, the saints represent people who lived many, many years ago in a very different world than our current world of constant noise and endless news. We look at these images in awe, but can we really relate to them? Can we ever see ourselves in them fully? Sometimes it's hard for me. And when we hear the Word and the inspirational homilies we hear at St. Ignatius Loyola, we want to find ways to live the Word, to put our faith into action. We want to live our best lives like the saints while living in our current, wildly hectic world, and it can be very challenging. Several years ago, a group of us got together to discuss ways of highlighting modern women who have shown us ways to live extraordinary lives in the modern world. And an idea was born. Why not honor contemporary women of faith, women who have shown us how to live in faith while making real changes in the world? And what if we were to place big, beautiful banners with images of these women all around our church? That would really make an impact. And so we began. We started with Sharon Levine, Dolores Huerta, Eleanor Josephus, and then the following year, we added Diane Nash, Sister Norma Pimentel, Molly Burnhams, and Sister Jean Gramick. And tonight, we are thrilled to be adding two more outstanding women to this group of courageous Catholic women, Rosanne Haggerty and Stacey Hengsterman. You'll hear more about them in a minute. Each of them has distinguished themselves through dedication to a cause and made a real difference in our world. The banners you see around this beautiful church are here to inspire us as modern Catholics, as people of faith. Thomas Merton said, "Every moment and every event of your life on earth plants something in your soul. For just as the wind carries thousands of winged seeds, so each moment brings with it the germs of spiritual vitality that comes to rest imperceptibly in the minds and the will of humankind." We hope that we're planting those seeds. Again, welcome.
Tonight, we're giving out some Mary Magdalene Awards, and I've been asked to explain why Mary Magdalene? Why? Why her? And I'm happy to tell you that the reason is because even the little glimpses of Mary from Magdala that we see in the Gospels, they turn out to be all we need to know. Mary was important. She was a leader, first among the many women disciples whose lives were transformed by their encounter with Jesus. We know that she was prominent because while women are mentioned throughout the Gospels, they appear in parables, a sister of someone, a woman with this disease, the wife of someone, or just the women. Very few are named. But Mary from Magdala, she's named in every one of the Gospels. We learn that early on, Jesus had actually healed Mary. The description is that she was cured of demons and ailments. We don't really talk like that anymore. And in modern parlance, we just say that she was cured of some serious illness, even though we may not know what it is exactly. It accounts for her later commitment and gratitude and habits of her life as a Christian follower. She's named as one of the many women, get this, who provided for Jesus and contributed to his ministry. Since she isn't the wife of someone or the mother of anyone, as far as we know, scholars think she must have been financially independent. And so her contributions show the gratitude that she felt and the commitment that she lived. Mary was also among many women disciples who walked with Jesus from Galilee to Jerusalem. That's no walk around the block. It's 60 or 70 miles, and it took them probably 3 or 4 days. It was a religious pilgrimage, a Passover pilgrimage. Yet it had ominous overtones. There were shadows among the followers of Jesus during those days because they had listened as Jesus had been speaking recently of his impending death. They didn't understand it. They feared for his life, yet they didn't stay at home. They accompanied him. They stayed close. And as you'll see, they stayed to the end. At the climax of Jesus' life, Mary Magdalene plays a particular role. She stands at the foot of the cross, according to every gospel. And with other women there, she witnesses the horror of crucifixion, the barbarity of it, in the heat, with the sounds of anguished cries, with men on horseback with swords, with the smells of blood and sweat. But that's not all. We learn from the Gospels that after Jesus dies that day on Good Friday, the sky turns dark, and Mary Magdalene is still there, and she watches as Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus take Jesus' body from the cross. She follows and sees where they place him, in which tomb, and she watches as they secure that tomb with a stone. That's how observant and closely watching she is. 3 days go by. They're long days, and the disciples are all hiding and frightened. They don't know what to think. And before sunrise, while it's still dark, Mary Magdalene, Salome, and Mary, the mother of James, this is according to 3 of the Gospels, not all, they find that exact tomb where Jesus is, prepared to anoint his body for burial. Yet, of course, we know what happens. The tomb is empty, and there's an angel there to explain the impossible, that Jesus has risen from the dead. Just notice, Mary and her women companions are the first people in these gospel accounts to see the empty tomb, to hear of the resurrection. These women disciples, who in their culture cannot even testify in a court of law, their testimony is so disregarded. Here, the angel instructs them to tell the other disciples to meet Jesus, who is now going to Galilee. It's a wondrous experience, and they do as the angel has said. But there's a different account, and I brought this Bible because every Easter, including in this spring, we will hear the first part of this account, but it will end before the part that I want you to really hear. We never hear this part about Mary Magdalene at Easter in our liturgy. You've heard this one. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed. She ran. She went to Simon Peter and the other disciple. On and on and on. Peter comes, the other disciple comes. Peter goes inside, and he finds that all of the linen wrappings had been rolled up in a certain place, that the tomb is empty. Then the other disciple who reached the tomb first also went in and saw, and he believed that it was empty, that Jesus somehow wasn't there. For as yet they still didn't understand the scripture, that he must rise from the dead. And then the disciples returned to their homes. That's where it stops. So I want to read this. This is why we care about Mary Magdalene. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb, and as she wept, she bent over to look in the tomb herself. And she saw two angels this time, two angels in white, sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head, the other at the feet. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" And she said, "They have taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they've laid him." And when she said this, she turned around, and she saw Jesus there, but she didn't know it was Jesus. And Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" And supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me, where have you laid him, and I will take him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." Jesus called her by name. She knew how he said her name. She'd heard him call her Mary many times. So when this man she thought was the gardener said, "Mary," she immediately knew it was Jesus. And she turned to him and said in Hebrew, Rabboni, which means teacher. This is an intimate moment. It's a kind of real human interpersonal intimacy. And here it is in our scripture between a man and a woman. There's nothing sexual about it. It's not charged in any way. It is the realization of one of the grandest ideas and experiences, and what could we say? It's the heart of our faith. He says, "Don't hold on to me, Mary, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." And Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." Why Mary Magdalene? Because her courage, faith, and love for Jesus and all the disciples are exemplary. And she plays this essential role in the Christian story as apostle to the apostles, boldly proclaiming the resurrection in her own words, as we must do ourselves. "I have seen the Lord."
Good evening. Did you know that we have an estimated 350,000 homeless people in New York City? Did you know that 120,000 New York City school children experienced homelessness at some point last year? Rosanne Haggerty, our honoree tonight, believes homelessness is solvable. Rosanne, inspired by Trappist monk Thomas Merton, sees homelessness as a social justice initiative. She sees homeless persons as human beings deserving of a stable place to call home, not people to be cast aside or stepped over. Her calling is to fix something that is broken. I concur with Rosanne's solution. For the past 3 years, St. Ignatius Loyola parishioners have volunteered with the Y Alumni National Service Project. We helped build 4 tiny homes on the Lakota Cheyenne River Reservation in South Dakota. Homelessness on the reservation, just as in New York City, is rampant, currently with 770 homeless families. These tiny homes are slated as housing for single moms and their children to have their own safe living space. The Seven Council Fires YMCA, located in the small town of Dupree, is the only YMCA situated on a reservation trying to combat homelessness and create jobs for the Lakota people. Rosanne is the eldest of 8 children from an Irish Catholic family from West Hartford, Connecticut. She followed her parents' example by responding to challenging social justice issues. Upon graduation from Amherst, Rosanne spent a year volunteering at Covenant House here in New York City. During this time, Rosanne was shocked and appalled at the number of homeless people she encountered. She saw homelessness emerging in a new form due to economic and social challenges, as well as to mental health, substance abuse, and reduced housing. After Covenant House, Rosanne worked at Brooklyn Catholic Charities and took on the homeless problem as the diocese began to build housing in their empty church buildings for the homeless population. After that, she founded the nonprofit Common Ground, which redeveloped the Times Square and Prince George hotels, reducing homelessness by 87% in the 20-block neighborhood around them. But she didn't stop there. Why? because finding a solution to the challenging issue of homelessness was a calling for Rosanne. Apartments could not be built as fast as homelessness was growing. Thus, Community Solutions was born, which takes a systemic approach. It assists cities and counties to come together to solve the complex housing problems facing their most vulnerable residents. Their focus is to try to change the conditions that produce homelessness using research-based practices. Her goal is to create a lasting end to homelessness that leaves no one behind, gathering the resources of the community. There is a beautiful line on their website. Quote, "We envision a more equitable society where homelessness is never inevitable, inescapable, or a way of life." Not only is it evident how Rosanne incorporates Thomas Merton's vision of wholeness into her work at Community Solutions, but also how her unwavering faith propels her into the service of others. Community Solutions was awarded a $100 million grant from the MacArthur Foundation in 2021. Using those resources, Community Solutions will help 75 diverse communities create conditions that will end homelessness. Within Community Solutions is the Built for Zero program that has 100 participating cities working to achieve functional zero as a measurable milestone for key populations, such as veterans, meaning that homelessness, when it occurs, is rare and brief. Already 14 communities have achieved this goal for at least one population, and 44 have achieved measurable reductions in homelessness. I ask you this: what will it take for us here in New York City to get there? Rosanne, we are in awe of and grateful for your extraordinary work to find solutions that work to end homelessness. On behalf of the parish of St. Ignatius Loyola, I am honored to present you with the St. Mary Magdalene Award. To you, Rosanne Haggerty.
Well, thank you, Jean, and thank you, everyone at St. Ignatius Loyola Parish. What a wonderful tradition you have here. What an inspired vision. And let me start with more gratitude. I lead a secular organization, actually, so my Catholic faith is not an obvious feature of my work. And I'm imagining the kind of digging around that must have been involved in finding me. And I'm quite sure that it was your interest in lasting solutions to homelessness that led you to Community Solutions. And so my thanks are equally for this recognition personally, and to the parish for lifting up a solutions-oriented approach to homelessness in this way. Now, as Catholics and as humans, we should not tolerate homelessness and not tolerate the story that homelessness can't be made rare and brief, which is a good working definition of what it means to solve homelessness. Communities can learn to stay ahead of it, to prevent it, to recognize it when it's happening, to resolve it quickly. And I've been working, as you heard from Jean, on this question of how to solve homelessness since college. first as a volunteer at Covenant House, and then in the course of that year-long experience, I realized that shelters and other short-term emergency responses were just not the answer. I learned from the young people at Covenant House, frankly, that housing had to be the starting point. For no one can complete their education, maintain relationships, get and keep a job, or remain healthy without the stability of a home. Now, a lot of learning has followed during the intervening years. And despite the country's current housing crisis and rising homelessness in many places, including New York, we now see the path to making homelessness rare and brief. We've learned at Community Solutions that the key to reducing homelessness is starting with accountability for results. We work now with more than 200 cities and counties in the United States and 5 other countries to help them achieve this. We help them to work differently, to build the community-wide teams aimed at solving homelessness overall, rather than continuing to operate a collection of well-intentioned and sometimes very effective individual programs and services, and combine all of these efforts into the single effort of reducing homelessness, not one-at-a-time programs. And at the heart of this team-based approach is to help communities know everyone who's experiencing homelessness by name in real time, to strip the anonymity away from homelessness, in fact, and to put those experiencing homelessness and not organizations or policies at the center of a community's effort. This person-specific picture of homelessness allows teams to see in real time what's working and what's not, and to improve their spending and policy decisions to prevent homelessness, help connect those in housing crises to stable homes more quickly, and to understand the specific housing and service gaps that need to be filled. Now, more than 65 of the communities in what we call our Built for Zero network have reduced homelessness measurably using this approach, and now 18 have eliminated homelessness for veterans, the chronically homeless, youth, or the elderly, despite the country's overall housing crisis. The point is, there's now proof that homelessness can be solved, and every reason to be hopeful for a future without homelessness as we know it. The work now is to spread this approach, and to do that, we must break through the dominant perceptions that homelessness is intractable, because this story holds failed status quo approaches in place. Now, this lovely recognition has given me a chance to reflect on 3 courageous Catholic women and their roles in this story. First, and foundationally, is my mother and her unshakable faith. As you heard, as children, she and my father would haul us to Mass in Hartford, Connecticut, where the only other regulars were elderly and disabled residents who were living alone in some of the city's remaining residential hotels or rooming houses. Quietly and until their deaths, both parents would step in to assist these friends and to welcome them into our extended family. My mother continued this direct support and modeling how to be a neighbor, no referrals or handoffs to faceless bureaucracies. After my father died, when the 8 of us were all under 17. So she was not only raising us alone, continuing to take care of all these people, she was also an anchor for countless friends, fearless in showing up for the causes and people that mattered to her. And if she had moments of despair, as she must have, what we saw always was a woman leaning into her faith at the most difficult and most joyful moments. And then there were women who arrived in my life at 2 inflection points. As my volunteer year at Covenant House wound down, I was at a crossroads to go on to law school, return to Hartford, and wait out a year, or maybe to stay in New York, where my experiences at Covenant House had been both compelling and immensely frustrating. it occurred to me that a retreat could be helpful. So I got myself to the Benedictine Abbey of Regina Laudis in Northwest Connecticut, which I recalled visiting as a child with my family. Well, while there, I was offered a parlor with Mother Placid Dempsey, a 4-foot-tall, Yoda-like Brooklynite who had been the first American woman to join the sisters from the French Abbey of Jouarre, who had established the foundation in Northwest Connecticut. Mother Placid was absolutely terrifying. She had no patience with my waffling and demanded to know what I was called to do. I somehow found myself saying, "Housing?" She pulled my vocation out of me and was like, "Well, okay, that's it, now what?" Here I am, 40 years later, thanks to Mother Placid. And it was about 20 years later, after that encounter, that I realized housing was not enough. Homelessness was increasing in New York City despite more people building housing like ours. More people were living on the street. And so I went to speak with people living on the street to find out what was breaking down. And I learned that it was, frankly, no one's job to end homelessness in New York City. And all the worthy services that existed failed to produce a solution that reliably prevented or resolved homelessness. Nothing was organized in a coordinated way with the intention of actually reducing homelessness in New York. It was more services, irrespective of whether there was less homelessness as a result. I didn't know how to go about dealing with this much bigger systems problem. But as I was struggling whether our work was to continue to build and operate good housing, or really to work on solving homelessness, the original intention, I was invited to meet with Jill Kerr Conway. Jill was an acclaimed author, the first woman president of Smith College, a trailblazer in creating the field of women's history, and a convert to Catholicism. Her first question to me, and I expected to be talking about how one of the companies she was on the board of could make some investments in our housing, but instead her first question to me was, how was it that with all of the organizations working on homelessness, the problem was getting worse? And so, uncannily, she articulated what I had been sort of haunted by. She went on to offer to work with me to figure out what this path could look like, and was my founding board chair as we left the first organization I'd started to begin Community Solutions, and to invite communities to work with us to figure out what this solution could look like, what the formula could be. Unfortunately, New York is not one of the communities that has adopted our model, but we're so thrilled that so many have and are seeing such results. So I thank you for this recognition and really the gift of the opportunity to recognize 3 courageous women of faith who shaped and supported and inspired me with their lives. And thank you especially for acknowledging our solutions-focused work on homelessness and the extraordinary work of communities that have embraced accountability for making homelessness rare and brief. Thank you.
Good evening. We don't meet our honorees or interview them before we select them. So often it's the first time we meet them is yesterday. So to prepare for this introduction, I requested what was supposed to be a brief phone call with Stacey Hengsterman. The phone call actually lasted about an hour and a half. I found Stacey to be so endearing and witty and honest during our time together that I left feeling like I was speaking to a friend that I've had for a very long time. Stacey is the second of 4 children. Her family moved around a lot due to her father's work. They were a traditional, attend Mass on Sundays Catholic family. She shared that when her parents told them they had news, it was one of 2 things. Either there was another baby coming, or they were moving again. Her family eventually settled in Rochester for some time, and Stacey attended SUNY Cortland, where she majored in English and met her husband, Rick. 20-something Stacey certainly did not plot this course for her life, and upon reflection realizes there was not much in the way of any grand plan. Stacey and Rick settled in Albany when Rick landed a teaching position, and she then started her career in the SUNY system and was eventually chief of staff to the chancellor. Stacey has 3 children: Jackson, who is 23, and he's here with us this evening; Alex, who is 20, and Lauren, who's 17. Stacey and I could have spent the entire time speaking about the joys and the challenges of motherhood. She speaks about her children with the deep knowing of each of them as individuals. Alex, Stacey's middle child, has Down syndrome. In Stacey's words, Alex threw us for a loop. They didn't even know the gender of the baby, let alone that he would have Down syndrome. Not only were they adjusting to a future with a child with an intellectual disability, but Alex was also born with holes in his heart. He required 2 open heart surgeries by the time he was 6 months old. Stacey spoke about facing the realities of her faith and how over time you just learn to adjust. Sharing a story about seeing a billboard on the way to work each day that said, "It's God, we need to talk," and how she shielded her eyes from it for a very long time was so honest and relatable. Stacey's always been a working mother as she's been raising her family, and like a lot of us, she found herself hitting a career speed bump after a new chancellor was appointed. Wondering how she arrived at this crossroad, Stacey was approached by a colleague about the role at Special Olympics. Now, Special Olympics was something that she knew about, but really had no affiliation with, and Alex did not participate in Special Olympics at that time. However, she knew she was highly qualified, and that she had the added credential of being a parent of a Down syndrome child. Applying through a video, Stacey landed the role. Through her work leading Special Olympics in New York, Stacey is highly focused on inclusion, which is something that has always been a primary concern for Alex. Special Olympics New York, which is the largest chapter in the US, serves over 48,000 athletes and unified partners. Stacey is looking to double this participation and is working towards other initiatives, such as improved healthcare and job training for people with intellectual disabilities. Alex, who's pictured in the banner with Stacey right here, is now a powerlifter and a bowler through Special Olympics. Stacey also participates on a unified bocce team, and what she didn't share with me is that she does the polar plunge with Special Olympics. I'm not doing that with you, Stacey. I don't like cold water. Thank you, Stacey, for having the courage to say yes when called by God. We're going to show a short video about Special Olympics New York and Stacey's vision for it.
When I think about if the boys hadn't participated in Special Olympics, I think about their lives being less fulfilled. Without Special Olympics, they wouldn't be venturing out into the world the way they are now. It gave them a voice that people listen to.
They don't care about like who you are, about what disabilities you have. All they care about is helping the athletes and helping you train.
It's kind of a safe haven. You go there, you compete, you can talk to people. People are in similar situations as yourself, so it's reassuring. It's, in some cases, a lifesaver.
What really stands out to me when I think about the Special Olympics New York program is the incredible impact it makes on people's lives. I see it firsthand with my own son, his life before Special Olympics and his life after Special Olympics. Now that he's in Special Olympics, it increased his confidence. It's part of his identity. It's something he talks about. He advocates for. He's proud of it. It's making him stronger. It's giving him a bigger network of friends and people that know him. It's breaking down those barriers of what people thought disability was or Down syndrome was into what they see that Alex can do.
We have differences, but that's what makes us unique and special. However, in spite of those differences, we have so much in common. And just that human connection, everybody needs the human connection. Everyone needs to be a part of the community.
My life has changed because I get to be a mom through Special Olympics. I don't have to be their caretaker. I don't have to be their one-to-one aide. I get to be a parent in the stands, enjoying, there you go, my son's competition. Nice shot. As a family, it has brought us closer together because we all have a common love.
We want Special Olympics to be more in the day-to-day of every athlete. We know what an impact it makes on their lives. They tell us. We see their enthusiasm. We see how it helps them with all of the issues that people with intellectual differences face.
Without Special Olympics, it wouldn't be the same. I mean, kids wouldn't be able to compete in sports. They wouldn't meet new people from different states. They wouldn't be able to travel. But now with Special Olympics, people can go out and show that your heart matters out there in the world.
The athletes get to build really strong friendships and partnerships, and they get to prove to everyone that they're just like all of us. They have hopes and dreams, and they can accomplish those hopes and dreams.
It is by far the best choice I've made in my life.
We can't enhance the opportunities for our existing athletes. We can't get more athletes. We can't recruit. We can't reach more people if we're not excellent in our organizational structure and skills.
It seems like thank you could never be enough for what Special Olympics has done for my sons. It's given them a voice. They now are more confident in themselves. They're physically fit. It's an endless list. But all I can say is thank you. And bless you for being there.
On behalf of the parish of St. Ignatius Loyola, I am honored to present the Mary Magdalene Award to Stacey Hengsterman.
I'm so happy I'm not wearing the same thing as that video. That happens sometimes. Phew. Thank you, Danielle. We are now best friends. I told her that after the call. And you are definitely polar plunging, so we will talk. And thank you to Rose and the incredible committee. We are so inspired by all of you. To Julie, who did this beautiful artwork. We had such a lovely dinner and getting to know your parish, and truly, I think you all deserve your own banners for all that you have done. I'm so honored to be recognized today. I'm proud to have been raised a Catholic who went to church on Sundays, was graded by my father on my behavior, attended religious classes, received all the sacraments. My influence growing up was not just my parents, but my entire extended family. There was a structure that the Catholic Church always provided to us that was familiar, and I grew up with pride that I was part of that and I belonged to something. It's really the first time that I remember feeling included. For the past 6 years, I have been the president and CEO of Special Olympics New York. You should all be very proud that New York is home to one of the largest chapters in the state with 48,000 athletes. These are children and adults of all ages and abilities, and nearly half of them are right here in New York City. I am so proud to be joined tonight by one of my very favorite athletes, Trent Hampton. I'd ask you to stand up, Trent. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Trent later, as well as my colleagues, Casey Vitimo, Diane Colonna, Alexis Dawson, the vice chair of our board, Can Katecha, is here. Adam Marino might be sneaking in. I didn't see him, also a member of our board. Thank you so much for being here. I got this incredible position 6 years ago at a time when it was really probably my lowest, personally and professionally, as Danielle kind of alluded to. When people ask me how I got this great job, what I really want to tell them is that God found it for me, but that's a little intense for most audiences. I think that maybe you might be the right audience, though, to accept that. You seem like the right crowd, so I'm going to go with it. Let me just back up a little bit. My husband and I are proud parents of Jackson, Alex, and Lauren. Jackson is right here. When our second Alex was born, I was 32 years old. We had no reason to expect that he wouldn't be born as perfect as his older brother had 3 years earlier. I went into the hospital that day, excited to give Jackson the perfect companion, a little brother, also his best friend. It didn't exactly happen that way. Alex was born with Down syndrome, extensive heart defects. My knowledge of Down syndrome at that time was 0. I did know that older women were most likely to have a child with Down syndrome. I used to say things like, I want to have 3 children by 35 so I don't have to worry about Down syndrome. I still picture how God's reaction to that must have been. I think he was like, I didn't really think about it, but I think you'd be perfect. So our plan didn't happen as expected, and in those first few weeks, I was not happy. I played the part, of course, of the happy, new, loving mom, but deep down in my heart, I truly felt that somehow I was being punished by God. Yet when most people heard the news, they would say to me, this is God's special child, and I must be so special to be chosen as his mother. I didn't feel very special. I felt mad, betrayed. I even blamed my maybe not so steady relationship, maybe not going to church every Sunday, as a reason. And quite frankly, those comments offended me. If this was supposed to all be part of God's plan, I just did not feel like I was on the better part of it. Was I courageous to take on the challenge? Sure. But honestly, what choice did I have? I was a mother. I didn't keep this pity party going for long, because after all, I did give Jackson a little brother and a best friend. We extended our family, and we have a really good family. We had a wiser, kinder family, more patient, because Alex was in it. I didn't immediately lean towards advocacy for people with disabilities, but rather used my time to just advocate for my own son and for his inclusion in our world. Fast forward 14 years, I was underemployed at my job that I loved and had been very committed to for 18 years. One day I was feeling very blue about my next steps. And when I say blue, I was looking out the window at the beautiful day and thinking it might be better just to take a little jump, not just to break my legs or just to get out of this decision-making process, anything to just cut what I knew I had to do and make these big decisions. And then I got a text message from someone that said, "Can we talk?" I thought that this person might have thought I was still in that position of power that I had been in 18 years. And I thought, he hasn't heard the news, but I'm gonna call him anyway. And he was on the board for Special Olympics. And he asked me if I would ever be interested in being the head of Special Olympics. My knowledge of Special Olympics at that time was almost as limited as my knowledge of Down syndrome. I had respect for it, like you do for big organizations. I knew it worked and advocated for people with disabilities. I certainly knew about the Kennedy and the Shriver family, but candidly, I think I thought more of it as it was charity. People that almost pity or feel sorry for people with disabilities. They hug them, they give everybody medals. Nothing wrong with that, but certainly not something that I was looking for my son. Again, I was wrong. I learned this quickly after I started my new job. My first day was out at USA Games in Seattle. I started watching the competitions. The first athlete I watched lost, and he lost in a big way. He was a power lifter. He missed his marks. His weights were off. He was upset. I said to my new team, well, can't he just do it over? And they looked at me like, uh-oh, who is this woman who obviously has no knowledge about sports? True. But then I realized, wait, this is real sports? Special Olympics is authentic sports, same rules, real competition. I had to really also look at myself and think, why would I think it would be otherwise? Why would I think just because you have an intellectual difference that you don't deserve the opportunity to play competitive, authentic sports? Then and there, I knew that more people needed to know what I so quickly learned about Special Olympics and what all of you are going to learn today. Because all of you have been recruited now as ambassadors of Special Olympics and the inclusion revolution, and you're gonna help me spread that word. First, Special Olympics is not just an advocacy organization. We take problems facing people with intellectual differences like social isolation, loneliness, health disparities, and we fix it through sport. We are competitive. Our athletes lose more than they win, and that's okay. There is probably an exception to this, and that is my friend Trent here. I don't think he loses very much. He is an incredible multi-sport athlete. He runs about a 4-minute mile. He has hundreds of Special Olympics medals from New York, as well as the USA Games and the World Games. He's probably the best triathlon athlete in the state. Outside of Special Olympics, he has completed 8 marathons with a record time of 2 hours, 58 minutes, and 59 seconds. That's one in... It's within 1 hour of the world record. Trent also is an exceptional human being. The first time I met him at my job, he said to me, take it a day at a time. You don't need to do everything all at once. And I thought, how does he know me so well? And he has been continued to be my therapist, my priest, my wise man since that time. The next question I get all the time is, when is the Special Olympics? They are every day, year-round, and that's something a lot of our fans don't realize. They're familiar with our big games, but those big games are only a fraction of what we do. The real magic of Special Olympics is in the everyday. Our athletes train over 3 seasons, winter, summer, and fall. They're in the gym or on the playing field a couple times a week, every week. It's that routine time with their coaches and teammates that have the most impact. That's where they become physically fit, and just as importantly, where they advance mentally and socially. But our state games are pretty cool. They're where our entire movement comes together. In addition to offering the highest level of sports competition, the games give the athletes the social benefit of maybe being away from their community residence where they live or away from mom and dad. And their mom and dad get to spend a little time with their friends. The games include free health screenings that can be life savings to our athletes. And of course, they include a dance party. Another misconception that I know I had about Special Olympics is it's just for people with intellectual differences. It's not inclusive. But the inclusion comes from being part of our community. Our thousands of volunteer coaches, our staff, our fans, our unified partners, they help and heal people just by being who they are. Raising a child with a disability can warm your heart and break it all at once. Families like ours have unique challenges. A weekend hike or trip to the amusement park is often not possible due to sensory, physical, or cognitive difficulties. Your child isn't often invited to their classmates' birthday parties. Friends don't regularly call and ask them to hang out on the weekends until they join Special Olympics. We have become a big family. It's a powerful organization, and since we are here talking about courageous women, I have to talk a minute about the woman that started it all. Eunice Kennedy Shriver and her brother, President John F. Kennedy, had a sister named Rosemary. Rosemary was born with an intellectual disability. Eunice always saw how difficult it was for her family to accept this disability, and she really always just saw Rosemary as her sister. Eunice was an athlete and a competitor before it was common passion for women, and she connected with Rosemary through sports. Her intense desire to do different, to do better for people like Rosemary, for people like her sister, led her to the creation of Camp Shriver. She hosted, now this is 55 years ago, such a different world. People with disabilities were living in institutions, and Eunice literally broke them out of those institutions, invited them to her backyard to play sports. It was archery, it was swimming, it was anything, it was competitive. Eunice dedicated her life to fight for those like her sister with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Because of her today, Special Olympics has touched the lives of 4.5 million athletes around the globe. She jotted down, when she's running to an event, and she jotted down some words on a napkin in a taxi cab, and we still use them today as our athlete oath. It says, "Let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt." Our athletes say that before they compete every single time. It has been a privilege advocating for people with intellectual disabilities. I still think of that 32-year-old self, that 32-year-old mom that was praying that maybe those heart defects might take that baby to heaven so I could get back onto my plan. There would be no way of telling her then that God is not punishing you, that He has a plan. It was the beginning of a contract. It was as if He was saying, I will show you why you were chosen to be this boy's mom, but I'm going to make you work for it. Alex was 14 years old when I became the president and CEO of Special Olympics New York, an organization I never once considered getting him involved in until I worked here. I think about that every day when I come to work, the opportunities he missed out on, the health benefits of being an athlete, the social and emotional benefits of being part of a team, the pride and the confidence he feels now when he puts on his bowling, bocce, or powerlifting uniforms. And then there's the joy his accomplishments bring to our entire family. The broader community that learns to include when they see what our athletes can do. So that's my number one priority, to make sure moms like me and athletes like Alex know that we are here and we can improve lives. I tell the athletes I love them all the time. It just kind of spills out. It's the most natural I love you outside of me saying it to my immediate family members. I do love them so much. I don't think a lot of CEOs get to say they say I love you a lot at work. I admire them. I see how hard they work, and I'm so grateful that God led me to them. I'm also so grateful to be with all of you tonight, because I know it's just one more sign that I'm moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm always at a loss for words in these kinds of events when the extraordinary words have already been spoken by exquisitely wonderful people, women of faith, courageous women of faith. And I do want to begin by saying we've honored all of the women whose images are on these columns, but we don't acknowledge the courageous women of faith of this parish who made this evening possible. So I would like us to let us show them our appreciation for all that they've done to make these evenings possible. And in that vein, not that I'm being political up here, I look for the day when women really take leadership positions in this church in more than in these symbolic ways. I am curious, though, with the words that Petty began with. I want to know, I'm curious, how many people eyes and minds wander when I preach? There's one. I was recently in Ireland, my first time there. I waited too long to go. And in traveling throughout the country, there were moments when I just stopped and words could not come to me. The breathtaking natural beauty, the beauty of those whom I visited and got to know along the way. Words just never came to me. I was awed by what I was experiencing. The women we honor tonight, not to diminish them in any way, we honor them, and through them, we honor all of those whom they serve, women and men, young and old. And I thought Karen's remarks were beautiful as well. Jesus, seeing Mary and calling her by name. Because of all of these women, and this evening in particular, because of Rosanne and Stacey, we don't call groups of people, we don't call them statistics, we call them by name. Those who need homes, our sisters and our brothers, have names. Those with disabilities of any kind are just like every one of us. But when we put them aside and categorize them and classify them, we lose sight of our own humanity. So it is through the efforts of women such as Stacey and Rosanne that we call these whom they serve by name, who need homes, who need to be involved in sports, just like all of us get excited about going home and engaging in some kind of competitive sport. We're all special, but we need people to show us the way. The reason I brought up my visit to Ireland, a loss of words, breathtakingly beautiful. All of the women who are displayed on these banners, and this evening in a special way, Stacey and Rosanne, they show us what the world could be like. And that leaves me without words to express how I feel about it. God at work in such extraordinarily and beautiful ways that He has allowed us to serve one another, to bring about a kingdom that we all desire. And many of us, most of us, these women who are images are displayed, are aggressive at it, courageous, and are building up God's kingdom here, the same work that each one of us is called to by our baptisms. We're all disciples. We all need models after whom we can do our job. That's why we have these women before us as well. There are other people in our society whom we don't know by name, yet to be identified. That's the responsibility of each one of us here. Who are our neighbors? How can we be present to them when they are alone and don't know where to turn? And so I'm inspired this evening, as I have been throughout all of the occasions in which we've honored these women. They give us every reason to hope that God will be true to his word, that his kingdom exists here and now. And every now and then when we catch a glimpse of it, as we do to providing homes, to providing a means of play, of sport, we catch a glimpse of what God has in mind for us. And there are those among us, women, who are leading us in that direction. And one day, by God's grace, women will lead us not only in this country, but also in our church, to the world God has always intended. And so, despite the fact that I said I had very few words, I couldn't think of any, that's enough out of me.
get to have the last word tonight, which is something I always like to do anyway. But that word tonight is thanks. So I want to thank first our honorees, Rosanne and Stacey. You are living embodiments of the Ignatian call to go forth and set the world on fire. And we know that our parish community will be inspired by you and your ministries for years to come. Please consider yourselves honorary parishioners of St. Ignatius Loyola Church. And thanks to our pastor, Father Yesalona. He is a true booster of this project and in the larger project of inviting women to participate fully in the life of the church and beyond. Thank you. And I too want to specially thank the women on the committee who carried this project forward this year. Patty Hughes, Danielle Clyap, Jean Santapadre, and Karen Sue Smith. Please stand up. If you know these women, you know how talented and caring they are. You are one spectacular team, all in, all the time. What was obvious to me was that you love this parish and you want to see it grow into the radically inclusive community that it is called to be. And of course, I want to thank our artist, Julie Loneman. Julie, please stand up. Julie is absolutely central to realizing our vision. She gets what we're trying to do, and she uses her very special artistic talents to create these stunning images that you see around you. So thank you, Julie. And there are many others who played important parts in bringing tonight together, bringing this whole project together, including the people who supported us financially and all the members of our parish community. So many of them are highlighted in the program, and I won't identify all of them, but you all have our heartfelt thanks. And then finally, thank all of you for coming. It really means a lot to us who have been working on this these many months. And to me, what it means is that you believe in a future for our church and for our society where women can utilize their gifts and skills fully and without limitation based on gender. Okay, so we have refreshments downstairs, everyone. Come down, please, and meet Stacey and Rosanne and each other. And on your way out, we have these fantastic brochures that were put together by Elizabeth O'Sullivan. And it identifies all the 9 women, and it tells who they are, so please pick one up on your way out. They tell the stories of all the courageous women that we have honored so far. Thank you all again for coming, and good night.